How you doing today, folks? Today what I'd like to do is take you guys along with me when we put together a new Craftsman's tool cabinet, tool cart. I'll show you that in a second. But what I'm hoping to do is put this cart together and have a spot basically to put a welder that I bought back in the 90s. The thing weighs like 120 pounds. This one is 26.5 inches wide, and then it's got 5 drawers on it. There was a 4-drawer model that was a little bit less money. They didn't have it in stock. The problem seems to be having the thing in stock, and I really wanted to see them. You know, I've looked at them a lot, trying to figure out which one I wanted to buy. You know, there's that bigger is better thing, but you know, I'm in a very small garage, so sometimes maneuverability is just as important. But it's 26.5 inches wide, 18 inches deep, and 34 inches high. Years ago, this would probably be vintage, I'm gonna say 86, 87, before I graduated high school. You know, I bought this guy at Sears, back when Sears, for the older guys, we'll go down memory lane. For the younger guys, this is how the world used to be. You know, there really wasn't, well, God, in those days, I don't even think Home Depot and Lowe's existed yet. But you had Sears, where they had basically like, you know, an eighth of the store dedicated to tools. And they had all kinds of, you know, different tool carts. And, you know, I remember the one I bought this in Milford, Connecticut. And, you know, one thing I did do is and I remember thinking about it back then, was I made sure to get a lot of drawers. So if you look at this guy, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's got 9 drawers, and it's a little bit taller than the one I just bought. But one thing I noticed with the newer tool cabinets, rolling tool chests, is they seem to be putting less drawers in them because it's, you know, obviously easier to make them. But I think I just want to say that if you're looking at a rolling tool cart chest, you know, for me personally, I have more, you know, narrower stuff than I do really, you know, really deep stuff. Well, there's nothing there. So, you know, there's still plenty of room in this one to keep filling. But Harbor Freight has a smaller one that's like 26 inches wide, and it's got a ton of drawers, and I really do like that one, or even their 52s. I'm not a big fan of Harbor Freight, but there's really not a lot of places that sell things like this anymore, besides the fact that Lowe's, you know, started carrying Sears. You know, you can look at stuff on a catalog, but if you want to touch it, feel it, and open the drawers and kind of plan it out in your head, it's tough to do. All right, so the first thing I want us to do is flip the carton over, open the flaps, and then flip it back over and just pull everything up. So let's see if we can do that. So I've got this nice mat here, so we'll see if we can line it up so I can flip it onto the mat. I kind of get nervous about putting, you know, all that weight so tight on the cart, but I think as long as I put a piece of plywood on top of this, you know, it'll spread the weight and bring the weight out to the edges where it's stronger. All right, let's see if there's some directions and maybe some wheels in here. So this one has whatever soft close drawers are. I'm not really sure what that means, but they do slow down a bit when you close them. And the other thing I like about this one is some of the new ones now, you have to flick something at the sides to open. And I'm very happy that you don't have to flick anything to open the drawers. And I guess this is for the top. I still just don't feel right putting that welder right on top of this, even with this middle mat. I want to put, I want to get a piece of plywood to spread the weight. All right, we're going to take a break, and I'm going to vacuum up as much of this styrofoam as I can. I'm going to put this other styrofoam in the bag, because if you don't deal with this stuff right away, you'll be dealing with it for weeks. I got a bunch of these labels to put on my gas cans for my generators, so I could put the date that I put gas in them. But I'm finding more and more uses for them. So what I'm going to do right away is I'm going to take these keys, and I'm going to take one of these tags with the nice metal hook on it. I'm going to write down what it is and tie it around here. So the big box I have with 20, 30 years of keys, at least I'll know what one pair goes to. I pretty much never lock my tool cart, but I mean, I'm storing my tools at home. But I know if you work in a shop or something, you definitely would want to lock them up every night. But there we go. Now we can just throw the keys in the box and never worry about them again. So these are the casters that they give you with the thing. You get two fixed, and then you get two swivel. And as I'm looking at the thing, this piece outside, which is purely cosmetic, that's metal. The inside of the caster is definitely plastic. But honestly, I mean, it doesn't seem like a chintzy caster. It seems like it's more than enough for what this toolbox is designed for. I was watching the video, and I'll try to remember to put a link in the bottom of this video, by a guy, Garden Fork TV, and he got, I don't know if it was the same cart, but it was a similar cart, and what he did is he took the casters, you know, you get two swivel and two fixed. He took the casters out, and he went to, you know, he went to the hardware store, or what he called the cheap tool store, and he just went and got the same hole pattern, and he put 4 swiveling casters on his toolbox. And boy, that really blew my mind. So I don't know if I'm going to do that right away, although now would be the time to do it. The swivels have a lock as well. I really was thinking that this was going to be, I hate to say it, a piece of junk. But so far, it seems to be keeping up with, you know, the one I got many years ago as far as quality goes. Things are different, styles obviously change. But I don't feel like it's any chintzier, for lack of a better term, than the one I bought, you know, back in the late 80s. I think we're going to stop the video here. Well, we're not going to stop it. I'm going to stop it, but it's going to keep going once I come back, so you won't know anything happened. But I'm going to actually take those casters, and there's a Tractor Supply 10 minutes from here, and I'm going to see if I can find 4 swivel casters that are really nice, that are the same size. And I might just go ahead and put the swivels on from the start. Because to be able to pull this workbench straight out from the wall, that would be really cool. And once I put this thing together, I don't want to have to take it apart and flip it over and all that. So you won't know I went away, but it may be a different day when we come back to filming. We're back from Tractor Supply, and I do have a few options to work with here. The first thing I just want to say, I thought it was funny. When it talks about installing the casters in the directions, it says use adequate personnel for this operation. So hopefully I'm adequate to install these casters. The other thing is there is this piece of metal down here which is supposed to, you know, give some strength to the sheet metal, and they want the bracket, you know, the L part of the bracket to be towards the inside of the cabinet. Okay guys, it's a couple days since I started putting this all together, and I'm not sure how much I rolled of me trying to figure out the casters. I basically got caught in analysis paralysis. And I want to say again, guys, so these right here, this is the casters that come with it. You get 2 swivel and 2, you know, straight, and they're perfectly fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with these casters. There's like a plastic on the inside, a little bit of metal for effect on the outside. Nothing wrong with these casters whatsoever. I had seen a video where a fella talked about upgrades for a tool cart like this, and he talked about using swivel casters on all 4 wheels. So I went out and I looked at swivel casters, and you know, this is one of the ones I saw. So I picked up 2 swivel with brake and 2 just plain swivel at Tractor Supply over the weekend. However, while I was at Tractor Supply, I saw these guys, and I just think the red color is so cool, and this is something that probably nobody's ever going to really notice once they're on there and I flip the thing back over. So, you know, after much debate, because these were a little bit more money, and the one difference is the brake is on the side like this, so when you wheel it back to the wall, there's going to be 2 brakes sticking out. So one of the things I'm going to have to do is kick these so they're not a trip hazard. I like these brakes better where you just step on them, but I just think it is the coolest thing to have these red casters on the Craftsman tool cart. So I've decided that this is the way I'm going to go, and even now as I'm sitting here, I really don't know why I wouldn't use these, because these are the easier way to go. You know, they still have the brake feature, and it's less obtrusive, but I just think these are sweet. So the only problem I'm having, whether I use this caster or this caster, is there's a little bit of a bump going on with the caster. I don't know if you guys can see, you know, it's bumping just a touch around the back here. So my thought was I could just get a file and I could file down this piece in the back a little bit. Or what I did is I went out and I picked up some pieces of metal. This is a spare piece of metal I had. So these are 3/16 by 3 strap. So I can just put these here, drill 4 holes in it, use those more as a spacer for my caster, so I don't have any bumping. So that is pretty much where we are right now. And the only difference is, you know, the kit comes with these little sheet metal screws. So, you know, I just wanted to show you, I love these little nut and bolt kits. But so this is one that, you know, it's been on my wall for years, and I use it maybe once or twice a year. But when I use it, it's so handy, so I don't want to tip it out. But, you know, guys, if you see these things, this is by a company called the Nutty Company. They've moved locations in Connecticut. But they have these assortments that, you know, just as you're stocking your shop, it's very handy to just open this puppy up, and I have enough of these. But even if I didn't, just to see the different sizes out there. So if I don't have enough, I can go down to the hardware store and pick some up. But I think this is going to be enough between the metal and the caster. So What we're going to do is I'm going to cut out 4 of these pieces of metal, or 3 of these pieces of metal, because I'm going to just use what I got. Drill 4 holes in them for the caster wheels, and then we'll mount the caster wheels and be one step closer to finishing this project. I also just wanted to take a minute and show you guys what I was considering doing. You know, I've been watching a lot of videos about something called Kaizen Foam, which looks really neat for organizing tools. So I'm always looking for ways to do things with, you know, more easily accessible materials, not specialty materials, and hopefully stuff I can, you know, find again. So I've been messing around with the stuff. Let me show you. I didn't order it online, but for like under 20 bucks at BJ's, you can get this comfort flooring here. And I was just playing around with it the other night, cutting out circles. And then what I did is I was at BJ's and I picked up some of these yoga mats, which were on like clearance. I thought the pink would be good for the color underneath. And my thought was, you know, to use that as my backdrop color, and then to cut out through this some holes for the welding rod. But it turns out, you know, each of these containers is like 10 pounds. So if you put 5 containers, you got like 50 pounds of weight in there. And it just, it seems like I'm adding a step where I don't really need a step. So I'm not going to put the welding rod in here. This would be the lower draw. But I did just want to show you that, you know, I got a cheap scalpel on Amazon. I got 100 surgical blades. And, you know, this stuff is pretty stiff. It takes like 3 passes to get through it. What I think I'm going to do is get a piece of cardboard and make a template for the size so I can just lay that on top. And then once I have the master size, I can lay out my tools for this foam. And the main thing I was thinking about is I have a 3/4 socket set that rattles all over the place, not for this box, but for this box. You know, those are some pretty big sockets, so I thought it'd be nice to have this pretty much not for the whole toolbox, just for the 3/4 sockets to start. That's where I was doing this. I don't know if this was a socket. I don't know what I was cutting around, but it's not perfect, but it's, if you take your time, you know, you can do a nice outline. So you're talking 20 bucks for the foam. I don't think I paid more than 20, 25 bucks for the scalpel. Just be careful and you know, a little bit of patience. You know, that seems to be what a lot of us enjoy, is just kind of what I call tinkering in the garage and organizing. So I just wanted to share that idea with you. I'm really not sure if I'm going to organize anything with the foam in this build, but it's just something I wanted to pass on to you guys. This is kind of coming into more of, you know, a little bit of this and that type video. I don't know if you guys can see, I actually outlined, well, I created this, you know, this was going to be my outline for where I would lay these through the foam, but it's just, this is freaking heavy. So I don't think I want to lay these things down that low. You know, I might move them somewhere else in the garage where I can put them on a shelf at an easy to see height. Okay guys, we're back at it, and I honestly lost track of time as far as how long this project's been going. We had a snowstorm. It took me a little while to paint these brackets. I basically just laid the existing brackets on top of a piece of steel, lined up one side, and then just marked the holes. I tried not to measure. It's always good if you don't measure, you just line things up. You get better results. And it's funny, I was watching the video by a guy, the channel is IC Weld, and he's a welder, he works on heavy equipment. And I was watching him, and he was talking about how he tries not to use a tape measure, if at all possible, when measuring things. Like, he'll literally take a piece of steel, weld it on, then just cut around it after he's fit the piece on. Or he'll cut out a bad piece of steel, then put the other piece of steel in and trace around it to make the patch, you know, rather than trying to measure it out. Because the more times you measure, the more inaccurate things get. And when I was watching him talk about this in one of his videos, you know, it came to me that they say, you know, measure twice, cut once, but maybe it should be measure 0 times, cut once, because you literally just lay the piece out and mark where you need the holes, as opposed to measuring, you know, like if I tried to measure so far out and then make little, you know, plus signs and drill the center of the plus signs. Again, this is a pretty sloppy piece, but it would have made a difference. So I just wanted to plant the seed, measure 0 times, cut once, because I think that's pretty awesome. Next thing is the color I used. I used this stuff right here, RUST-OLEUM Painter's Touch Ultra Cover, Gloss Apple Red. This is what the color came out to look like. You tell me whether it looks close enough or not. It's the bottom, no big deal. But I feel like it's a pretty darn close match, where after a year or two of being in the sun, it's going to fade together, and you know, you won't know the difference. So just so you know, if you're looking for a color for a newer Sears tool cart, that's what you're looking at. As I look over at my older cart, I think the red back in the day was a deeper red. But again, maybe that's just 30 years of wear and light. So so the new casters go on now, and I think you can see how they're not gonna bump anything except the ratchet. So hopefully we can get these casters on, and then flip the thing over and figure out how we're going to put the welder on top of it. So this is what came with the thing, and I just, like I said, I had that kit, so I just took some longer ones. There's plenty of room for slack, so if I'm a quarter long on these, you know, it's no big deal. But I am going to use little, you know, longer sheet metal screws to get these mounted. And then the rule of thumb when you're putting things together, whether it be a Craftsman workbench or IKEA furniture or some piece of furniture you bought online, is you don't go super tight right away. You want to leave a little bit of space, you know, so the thing can jiggle around. And then once you get all the screws in, you can go back and tighten them. But if you start screwing things down super tight right from the start, you're going to have a hard time with those last screws if things don't line up perfectly. And in manufacturing, things never line up perfectly. That's just a fact of life. So let me go put this other side on now. All right, so we got everything snug, so I'm just going to kind of make sure everything's lined up nice. I pushed the bracket back because when I measured this, I measured from this side of the bracket. So again, it probably doesn't make a difference, but just for what we're doing, I'm going to line things up that way. And then once you're sure you got everything lined up, you can go ahead and snug things down. And, you know, we're putting these into sheet metal, so we're not trying to, you know, rip the sheet metal out. We just want to snug them. And I think that's one of those things that, you know, when you're younger and you do this, or at any stage in life, you take one too far and you realize it takes more time to fix over torquing something than it does to be patient when you put it together. So I'm going to snug these, but I'm not killing them. And you'll also notice I'm using a nice short ratchet. I have a real nice gear wrench ratchet that's got a longer handle, but all that's going to do is cause me to want to, you know, go more animalistic on this thing. So I use the short one. I'll use the long handle usually for taking stuff apart, and the shorter handle for, you know, screwing things down, and also because the short handle is easier to maneuver in tight spots. All right, let me tighten the other side. All right, so we got everything snug, and I'm happy to report that when I put all these screws on, there was never a point when I was torquing when all of a sudden you felt the ratchet just kind of like move, like you just stripped out the sheet metal. So that's always a good sign. And one other thing I just wanted to touch on was about, you know, using power tools. You know, in the United States, we seem to be infatuated with power tools, and I suspect all over the world, because guys are guys no matter where you are. But, you know, if you were going to use a power tool on something like this, you really would want to start the screws by hand, use your power tool to get it tight, you know, snug, but then finish up with your wrench or your ratchet, because you don't just want to go nuts. You know, these power tools, I know some of the companies talk about nut-busting torque. Well, if you hit this screw with nut-busting torque, you're going to just strip out the sheet metal and have a big hole underneath there, which is going to cost more time. So sometimes it's better to just do it old school, or if you're using your power tool, you really need to, you always thread it by hand if you're using an impact driver or something, but thread it by hand, snug it down, and then use a torque wrench or just hand torque it in the end. Just something I wanted to say if anybody's new to this. I sometimes wonder who's watching my videos, because I don't really think this is anything too riveting, but maybe there's somebody new to this. I want to just share that. And maybe there's guys that, you know, are way beyond my mechanical abilities. You know, let me know your thoughts below. All right, the last thing I want to go over while we got the cart flipped upside down, just to get it out of the way, is removing the drawers. So let's say you want to remove the drawers to put a liner in there, you know, do some organization or something. Each side there's these little tabs here, and what happens is one side you push the tab one way to get it to come out, the other side you push the tab the other way. And there must be a little knack that I have yet to figure out yet, but sometimes they come out and sometimes they don't. So just, again, you know, don't force things. See, that time it worked. But when I was on the other side, it was being very stubborn. So on this side, we're pushing the tab down. So I pull out, it hit the thing, push the tab down, and it came right out. And on the other side, just out of curiosity, pushed it out till I hit the tab, and then I pushed the thing up, and it came right out. So you know, this is one of those things, you know, again, where just don't force it, don't break it, because then you're gonna have to wait to order the part. So just pull the draw out, you'll hit the tab. One side is up, one side is down. It looks like you're gonna push this tab. Whichever side has more airspace on it is the way you're gonna push the tab. You know, you'll see how there's a much larger space down below here, so just push the tab that way, pull back. And on the other side, it's the exact opposite. So just something to file away. You may never need this, but if you do, there it is. Not bad, huh? I mean, she really spins nice. The thing about the casters I got was most casters just lock the wheel, whereas the ones I got, there's actually a little piece up above too that kind of locks the caster in place, so the workbench won't spin either. But you know, a little tricky. I need more of a lip on my shoes. You know, there's no weight in the workbench now, or tool cart, but she's rolling real nice, real nice. So yeah, it took us a little time, but I think I'm gonna be liking that for as long as I own this cart. And when you lock them down, I mean, yeah, there's a little bit sticking out, but it's not a ton. I got some more of this white junk to vacuum down there. Can't stand that stuff. So the next thing I want to do is, you know, figure out what to put on top here to put the welders on. And I'm pretty sure the way I'm headed now is just a 3/4 inch piece of plywood. I'll paint the thing probably like a gloss black, an oil gloss black. Just lay that on top. And then once I lay that on top, I can lay my welders on top. So we have the Miller welder, which I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to get that sucker up there, because it really does weigh like 120 pounds. And I'm not at the age where I can just push my body and get away with it anymore. And then, you know, this guy I probably got in the mid-90s as well. This is a transformer MIG welder. It's 110 volt. It only does flux core, but I think I have room for both of these welders up on that cart. I just want to take a minute and show you guys how easy it is to cut this stuff if you want to use it as a liner for your drawers. I'm pretty much just going to put one layer of this in the bottom of the drawers to keep things from rolling around as much, basically scratching up the drawers and making more clanging noise than necessary. But all I have here is, we have a store locally called BJ's, and it's just, it's just some of this flooring stuff. I have it underneath my feet as well. So it's got like a harder part to it on top there. So it's got like a, like a harder part on top there, but if you flip this stuff over, it cuts really nicely with a razor blade. So, I keep this on the workbench, and I mentioned, I have a scalpel I got, so if you need to cut circles in this stuff to go around tools, you certainly could, but right now I'm thinking just a liner. I'm sure you could just go out and buy liners. I'm going to lose, looks like about, a half an inch or so to this stuff. But, what you can do is you just use, your utility knife. And then I think I mentioned I have this thing here for sharpening. I got it for pruning shears, but this is it's a diamond sharpener. This side is fine, this side is coarse. So whenever you're cutting this foam, if you basically just keep up with your sharpening, 5 or 10 swipes, I don't know, every 2 or 3 cuts tops, and just keep the thing not like razor sharp, like super sharp. Let me just show you, where are we? Let me just show you how easily it goes through. So for what I'm doing, first I'll go through and cut off the outside. And it actually cuts better if you cut it from the back, because that top layer, it catches your blade. So let me just nip off the ends here. And I'm trying not to rush. Just, for the most part, line things up. All right, so we've knocked off all the teeth on the outside, and then just to show you, we just touch your blade up a little bit. And then I made this pattern. Which I actually had to cut it smaller because the pieces were a little too tight. But at this stage in the game, I'm not being super precise. I'm just trying to, get something in the drawer to keep the bottoms from being scratched. So I'm lining up my piece of cardboard here, and accepting that I'm not being perfect. I know I could do a lot better if I wanted to. Okay, so we've got that laid out, so now we can just, I'm not trying to cut through the whole thing at once. At this cut, I'm kind of trying to score it like when you're cutting drywall. And I'm trying to take my time as well so I don't cut my template. Okay, and then pretty much we have things lined up. So I just got to lop a little bit off over here. So, there's your liner, and you could use this side as the top if you wanted just something smooth. If you wanted to have a cool diamond plate pattern, there you go. There's your cool diamond plate pattern. And again, you could always use 2 layers of this if you wanted to put some sockets. That's my goal, is I think I mentioned earlier, I have a 3/4 socket set, which isn't going in this one, but that eventually I want to lay out nice and neat so I can, find my sockets a little easier. All right, so let's see how we did. So, there you go. There's a fairly inexpensive liner. It took me a few tries or a couple tries to get the size right, because the first time I cut it, I made it super tight, and depending on the temperature of the garage, if it warmed up, the foam would expand and bubble, and then if it cooled down, it would shrink back down. So, you want it to be snug or just under snug, so it's got a little bit of room to wiggle, but I think we're pretty good. So that's, we've got, there's my welding, my gloves and stuff. But, we've got some foam in these. Not really sure it's necessary, but hey, it's something. I need to cut this one. You see how it's kind of bubbling up? Because I tried to cut it too perfectly. So I'll just take like a 1/4 inch off of 2 sides and it should fit beautifully. Hey guys, it's been a while since I started this project, and it has morphed into something which I never could have imagined it would become. But the new name for this project is the project that'll never die. So the good news is I got the new casters on, and to put the new casters on, we had to make those metal pieces to give them a little more lift, and I also thought it was good to spread the weight of the welders a little bit. To be able to put the welders on top, I got this board, I gave it 2 coats of paint. It's been 2 days since I painted it. I'm going to give it 1 more days until I put the welder on top, just to make sure it's dry. I cut these liners out. I'm not sure how much of that I put in or not, but I did cut some, basic drawer liners for the drawers. I got some of my tools in here, so we're making progress. The next thing to do is to get, the 110, 120 pound welder and put it on top here. The Miller stick welder is going to go over here, and then the wire feed, which is a flux core wire feed, is going to go over here. The flux core wire feed is maybe 30, 35 if I had to guess, but the Thunderbolt XL, it's heavy. It's freaking heavy. So again, we're going to let the paint dry a little bit more before we mess with that. I'll probably lay some narrow blocks of wood on the top so I can just kind of slide it off and get it into position, and then once I get into position, I can raise one end and kind of let it settle. The only other thing is, because I put the piece of plywood here, we lost the lip on the cart. So I don't want 120 pounds of welder to just slide off the cart. I don't think it's a big deal in the garage. I really don't think it's a big deal, but I think what happens is one day when you're rushing, maybe I roll it out of the garage into the driveway or something, and it shifts, and I don't want the welder to go. But I have yet to figure out what I want to do to anchor the welder, or to put some kind of lip. So we're just going to think on that for a while. Right now, we'll focus on just getting the welders up here. So hopefully the next time you guys see me, we'll have the welder on top. Hopefully I'll clean them off a little bit. Hey guys, I got the welder up on the cart here, and what I did is I end up using a set of ramps I have to put stuff in the back of my pickup. So I did get my wife to help me, and we braced the cart and then just rolled the welder up onto this ramp so I could take off the wheels and stuff. And I figured, well, it's up here, I'll go ahead and vacuum out the inside. I just thought, since we got the thing apart, if you ever wonder what the inside of a transformer welder looks like, this is the Miller Thunderbolt 300-200. There you go. So it's got what I assume would have to be a giant transformer. And if you take a look when you change the amperage, I don't know if you can see that. There's a piece of metal here, which I guess the more contact this metal has, looks like the more it's gonna damp down, because I'm moving it for lower amperage, and then the less contact, the more amperage. There's this thing up here, which is so we were just moving this dial down here. This thing up here, which is your AC high range, AC low range, DC electrode positive, and then DC electrode negative. So you got all that stuff here. And then if you ever needed to change your welding cables, there's just a little screw right in the back. Little screw right in the back with like a little keeper. And then, this one cable here actually comes up, and it's just a screw. So it's very easy to change your cables if you ever had to. They got a nice fan in the back there. Keep things cool. I have no idea what this thing is, if anybody knows, and I have no idea what this thing up here is either, if anybody knows. Let's go to the other side. All right, and then, just out of curiosity, this is the other side. There's this giant transformer. They actually welded some metal to it, and then I think they're called the shunt blocks. Each side has these two screws over here, and there's a little bit of grease there. And I know I was watching Welding Tips and Tricks once, and he mentioned something was going on where the welder wasn't welding right. So I think there's an adjustment. If you have one of these that's old, I don't really know exactly what it is, but I'm assuming there must be a certain torque you're supposed to have on these screws, and then there must be some high temperature grease in there as well. But both sides have these screws. It's got to be in the manual, right? And then it's also interesting, so, here's your power lead coming in. It's just three, it's 240. You got two hots and a negative. So the negative just goes to the frame, and then, your two hots up here, and then it comes out and it goes down to that transformer. But it's interesting, they removed the sheathing down here, and I'm assuming because if you're welding a lot, it could get very hot and melt the coating. That's all I can think of. But I don't know. That's just what the inside of a welder looks like, if you ever wondered. They make them now with hot start and dig, and you could get the same performance for 20 or 30 pounds. But I'm pretty sure this welder, if you take care of it, is a multi-generational welder, because I really can't see much that could go wrong, besides the fact that screw in there, I think, is plastic. Hopefully it's like a high heat plastic or something. But maybe that's the difference between the commercial machines and the homeowner jobbies is, maybe the commercial ones, all that stuff would be metal that's just designed to be run all day, every day, or multiple shifts every day. It's light. Really light, really moves easy. You guys see my new plug? All right, guys, well, I think we pretty much finished this one up. I was thinking it might be nice to plug this in and run a few beads, but it's about 7 o'clock at night. It's about 20 degrees out, and there's a giant lawnmower in the way, so we're not going to do that tonight. For any of you guys watching that have common sense, yes, this is a sub panel, and yes, I am blocking the door. As I'm standing here, I'm thinking I might just switch the welder cart for the grinder cart, because the grinder cart is lower, and that should pretty much take care of the problem right there. Initially, when I thought this all through, I saw the welder sitting right here. Obviously, as you can see, I did decide to just go with the stick welder on the cart. I'm glad I did, because it definitely would have been crowded if I tried to jam the flux cord MIG in there, but I did bring I brought the Harbor Freight cart up. I put the flux cord MIG on the cart, but I still don't know if I don't want to leave it anywhere else because it's getting heavier and heavier. I usually put it in my basement, but it's a pain to go down and bring it up. But I mean, I'm in a 2-car garage here, and there's just not a lot of room to work. So maybe I need to start saving pennies for a shed so I can, get rid of the storage component of this garage and then just use it as my, my workshop. Or a better idea is start saving some money for a nice detached garage, put a nice wood stove in there, run a sub panel out there, put some good insulation, and then go buy a farm wall and start restoring it. One thing at a time. So guys, if you stuck with me through this one, I really don't know why, but hopefully you got something out of it. Even if it was just watching me get a little bit frustrated through this project. Maybe you got some ideas. I've been thinking about doing this, I don't know, 2-3 years, if not longer, and I'm just so happy to finally have this thing off the floor. Turns out, even with it off the floor, the numbers are very small, so not really making a huge difference, but I don't have to bend over anymore to pick it up. But it was fun, If it doesn't kill us, it makes us stronger, and I feel stronger, and I look forward to running some beads. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you soon. Take care. I don't want to have to bend over and go 6 inches from the floor to change the settings on the welder. It's not my thing. The whole purpose of this whole project is to get the welder off the floor. So what I'm going to do, these are, what did I do with the,